handle somebody who walks into a courtroom angry, confused, disrespectful, scared, or just overwhelmed by life?
I think that when people come into the courtroom, a lot of them come with all of those emotions. And most of the time, overwhelmed because they don't know this process. They've probably never been in court before. Patience. That's the word. Having patience, explaining to them the process, having patience for them, and explaining the process to them in a way that they understand to make it more comprehensible. I think that would be how I would handle a person that walks into a courtroom with all of those emotions, because that's what they need. They don't need to be scolded or yelled at for not understanding or not knowing what's going on. This is our arena. This is what we're used to. This is not what everyday normal citizens, they don't run in this circle. So they don't know. So they need it to be broken down and explained in a way that they can understand and get it.
They call me brother, sharing the same bread. Now they count the price to see me dead. Yeah, the asphalt holds the history of the walk we take. Beyond the flashing lights and every forced mistake, I hear the heartbeat of the bottom where the shadows dwell. A story only those who survive it can truly tell. Shreveport corners watching as the seasons change, while the powers in the marble halls keep things the same. But the silence is a weight that we can no longer bear. There is a heavy kind of truth hanging in there. We talk of trauma buried under layers of the skin, the cycles of the struggle where the hurt begins. But healing starts when you name the ghost inside the room, breaking through the concrete like a flower in the gloom. It is political and personal and plain to see. The chains they force for you are also meant for me. Accountability is calling out from every porch and block. The time is ticking loudly on a steady local clock. Hey, out with Pac Man. Hey, out with Pac Man. Open up the door and let the spirit breathe. Nothing left to hide up a tattered sleeve. Bury it out with Pac Man. Bury it out with Pac Man. Let the truth collide with the city's sand, holding all the future in a steady hand. Street culture is the blueprint and the jagged edge, the promise kept on every single concrete ledge. We see the leaders dance while the people stand in line, demanding answers for the way they spent the hard-earned dime. I see the interviews where honest lives begin to glow, a platform for the voices that the world refused to know, exposing every fracture in the foundation of the town, building up a kingdom while they try to tear it down. You can't find the cure until you understand the pain. The sun won't mean a thing without the freezing rain. We are challenging the status and the quiet lies, looking at the world without the scales upon our eyes. Uplift the neighbor standing right beside your own back door. That is what the struggle and the platform are mostly for. Unfiltered conversation is the spark that lights the fire, lifting up the community as the flames climb high. Headed out with Pac Man. Headed out with Pac Man. Open up the door and let the spirit breathe. Nothing left to hide up a tattered leaf. Bury it out with Pac Man. Bury it out with Pac Man. Let the truth collide with the city's sand, holding all the future in a steady hand. Hey, most people turn away when the mirror gets too clear. They feed upon the comfort and they tremble at the fear. But here the microphone is open for the bold and brave, to rescue every legacy that we are trying hard to save. From the entertainment highlights to the legislative floor, we are knocking loudly on the heavy iron door. No more secrets whispered in the dark behind the veil. We are writing down the chapters of a different kind of tale. Bear it out with Pac Man. Bear it out with Pac Man. Open up the door and let the spirit breathe. Nothing left to hide up a tattered sleeve. Bear it out with Pac Man. Bear it out with Pac Man. Let the truth collide with the city's sand, holding all the future in the city hand. Bear it out with Pac Man. Bear it out with Pac Man. Let the truth future in a steady hand.
It's your boy Pac Man, the Hood Voice Box. You know what I'm talking about? And we got another episode of Air It Out with Pac Man, and this is the segment of Politics with Pac Man. We have a candidate for city judge sitting next to me. And would you like to introduce yourself to my eye?
Yes. So, hello, audience. My name is Trinesia Leonard. I am a Shreveport local attorney. I was a Caddo Parish prosecutor. I'm currently a criminal defense attorney. I have done family law work and a host of other things. And now I'm running for Shreveport City Court Judge, Division D. And election day is November 3rd. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
All right. So for the people who may never have seen your name on a flyer but don't really know you, or they have seen your name on a flyer, who is Trinesia Ferris for real?
Trinesia Leonard Ferris is a mother. She's a wife. She's a daughter. She's a friend. I am not originally from Shreveport. I am from Montgomery, Louisiana, but I'm married into Shreveport. My husband, Daniel, he and his parents are from Shreveport, Louisiana, and his grandparents have a church here that they pastored for many years. And so I met my husband, I moved to Shreveport, and that's where our lives began here in Shreveport. My husband and I, we have two small kids. Our first son, Sebastian Ferris, he's 3 years old. And our younger son, Amir, he's 2. And we're raising our family right here in a community in which we love, Shreveport, Louisiana.
Okay. What makes you say that this is the seat that I want to run for? What about Division D and why now?
So I've always, ever since I've been a little girl, I've always wanted to be a judge. So there was no doubt that I was eventually going to run for judge. Particularly now, I believe that I could bring a strong professionalism, integrity, stableness, and stability to the bench. And I think that right now we need that more than ever on that particular seat. So that's the reason why I decided now is the time I'm going to go for it, because that seat needs a change.
Okay. Is there something in particular about that seat that kind of looks at your heart?
I can't get too much into that, but there's a lot of controversy around the seat, obviously. Okay. And like I said, I really think that it needs a change, and I think that I would be that change that the needs.
Okay. A lot of people in the community don't really understand what city court does until they have gone through there. So how would you explain the job of a city court judge to regular people in plain language?
I think in plain language, the job of a Shreveport City Court judge is we affect everyday ordinary people, and we come into contact with a lot of everyday ordinary citizens. You would appear before a Shreveport City Court judge for things as minor as traffic violations, also misdemeanors, DWIs, domestic abuse batteries, and those sorts of things. Also, Shreveport City Court can issue protective orders for victims that needs protection. If you have a landlord eviction type situation, you would appear in city court for that type of thing as well. So we come into contact with a lot of everyday ordinary citizens with minor, I would call it minor criminal offenses, but they have a serious impact. And a Shreveport City Court judge needs to understand that you impact ordinary citizens' everyday life when they appear before you in your courtroom.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Before we get into the law, what in your life has prepared you to sit in a position where your decisions are going to affect everyday people, like you say?
Like I said, I'm a former Caddo Parish prosecutor. So in that position, it came with a lot of discretion, being able to make decisions on files and being able to look at files and offer plea deals and things of that nature. So I have that experience. Also, I'm a former criminal defense attorney. So I also have that where I've advocated for my clients in the courtroom. So I have that. I have close to 10 years of legal professional experience that I'm bringing. And I've done a host of family law and things of that nature. I'm also the vice president of the local women's section, Shreveport, as well as a Louisiana State Bar Association member. So I'm bringing a wealth of experience with me when I'm running for this position.
Okay, so you've been on both sides.
I have. I've been on both sides.
Okay. You talk about fairness, dignity, and professionalism.
Yes, sir.
What does that look like in a courtroom when the courtroom is packed, people are frustrated, and emotions are high?
I think it looks like a judge that's even keel. I think it looks like a judge that has self-control and restraint. I think it looks like a judge that has patience. I think it looks like a judge that has integrity. I think it looks like a judge that's not rushing to make a decision despite the courtroom being packed in full. You're still going to listen to the evidence. And you're going to listen to all of the evidence before you decide or rule in either direction. I think it looks like balance. I think it looks like compassion met with accountability. I think all of those things encompasses integrity.
Okay. With a room being packed, should a judge allow those emotions to affect their decision in any manner?
No, absolutely not. A courtroom that's how do you operate under pressure, right? As attorneys, we're constantly under pressure. We're pressured from the time that we get to the courtroom. Our clients want to hurry up and get their case resolved. And you have to slow it down and tell them, like, look, it's a process. If you've got into legal trouble, anybody that's ever been in legal trouble understands attorney just can't walk in the courtroom and make the charges disappear or go away. That is a process that has to be worked from the beginning to the end. So I think operating under pressure, that's just something that we do anyway as attorneys. So that wouldn't be any different if I was on the bench or if I'm walking into a courtroom packed as an attorney, my temperament would be the same.
Okay. So you've been a prosecutor, you've done defense work, and you've handled family law.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me ask you, what did seeing the courtroom from different sides shape the type of judge that you're going to be?
Okay. As a prosecutor, I saw the courtroom from the prosecutorial standpoint, where you have files, but you don't know the name and you don't know the background and you don't know the history of that particular file. You just have a file and you have the name of a person, but you don't know the person. So I've saw from that perspective. I've also saw from a criminal defense perspective where I actually know the person, where I can advocate. When I go to as a criminal defense attorney, my story that I give them is, hey, look, my client is 18 years old. This is their first time ever getting in trouble. So I'm coming with a story from a criminal defense perspective, as opposed to me being a prosecutor and I'm looking at a file and I don't know the story and I don't know the background. So those are two different angles that I think I could bring balance to the bench because of that, because I have been as a prosecutor and I've also been as a criminal defense attorney. And then as a family law attorney, I've also done that as well. So I see how judges' decisions affect families, how it either brings families closer at the end of it or it rips them further apart. So I think with all of that experience, I would be able to bring a very balanced, a very compassionate perspective to the bench.
Okay. With all these years of experience, without going into specific, have you ever went home and said, I wish I did this one different?
I can say that I have done that, yes. Because before the titles and being an attorney, I'm a person. And people do make mistakes sometimes, but I'm not afraid to admit that I've made mistakes. And I wish that I would have advocated a little bit harder, or I wish that I would have been a little bit harder on someone than I was. So yeah, I can say that I haven't always got it right.
That makes sense. When you were a prosecutor, what did that teach you about accountability, victims, public safety, and making sure that people are held responsible?
So about accountability, it taught me that if someone breaks a crime, there is going to be some type of penalty. Most of the time, as a first-time offender, that penalty was probation. If you were a second or third-time offender, that wasn't the same penalty. About victims, being a prosecutor, it taught me that their stories needed to be told, that they needed to gain some type of closure through the process, and that I needed to advocate hard for them because I was their voice. I was a voice for the voiceless in the courtroom. And what was the other question? I'm sorry.
And I asked you, what did it teach you about public safety?
So for public safety, some offenders, they need to be incarcerated. If you have one person that has came before you 2 or 3 times for the same thing, the penalty needs to be harsher because obviously they're not learning. And I think that you owe that to the public to keep them safe. You can't keep giving somebody probation year after year and then they just keep doing the same thing.
Like they're getting emboldened.
Exactly. This is not working, so something else needs to be done. So in terms of public safety, being harsher on crimes, that's what I learned as a prosecutor.
All right, with that, Are there certain crimes that you would, so say a person committed this type of crime and that type of crime. This the same, they got the same background, but is there certain crimes that you just would have zero tolerance for versus, let's say a person got caught with a bunch of drugs and guns, and then you have a person who is charged with maybe manslaughter. Would you be more no nonsense to the manslaughter than you would the drugs and guns, or vice versa?
I would apply the law fairly. So I would definitely follow the law. And in terms of if there was a crime that would stand out to me, it would be anything involving children, like molestation of children or something, because I'm a mother. But I would still apply the law extremely fairly and be impartial about it.
Basically, being ethical is very
Absolutely, is extremely important.
okay. On the other side, as a defense attorney, what did that teach you about people making mistakes, people being poor, people being scared, and people not always understanding the system?
So as a defense attorney, and that kind of goes back to the stories I was telling you, you get to come in contact with your clients and you get to listen to them and you get to find out their story. I've had I guess you would call it the luxury of representing all different types of clients. One particular one that stood out to me, it was a mom. She had 5 kids and she was charged with theft because she was stealing food in order to take care of her kids. So that story, it's going to be different than someone going out stealing out of people's cars and they have money. So it teaches you the stories behind each of these cases. There's always a story. And so that allowed me to advocate more effectively whenever I went to reach a plea deal with the prosecutor and say, hey, look, this mom, I know she broke the law. We're going to hold her accountable, but let's give some compassion in the decision makings. I think that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Do we have a system that is willing to hear that?
I would like to say that we do. But
Caddo specific.
I believe that we do. Can that system be tweaked a little bit more? Absolutely. Can we make improvements to it? Absolutely. There's always room for improvements. And I think that it's the people that you have in these types of positions, like as your Shreveport City Court judges, as your Shreveport District Court judges. I think those people, they carry a lot of weight in the court system. And it starts there.
Family law can bring out pain, anger, hurt, and trauma. What did that teach you about patience and dealing with people during some of the hardest moments in their lives?
Yes, family law has always been very special to me. That was the first area of law I went into right after I graduated from law school. And you're absolutely right. In those trying times, people need someone that's going to be extremely patient with them because you're talking about taking somebody's kids. Yes, they're going to be angry. Yes, they're going to have raging emotions. And you, as a professional, you have to be able to walk that line. And it's a very tedious line where you advocate for them. You tell them what the law is, even if it's not what they really want to hear. So that's hard to do. But I learned to be patient, to be understanding, to be a good listener, to be a good, effective communicator. All of those things make a great attorney. Yeah.
So, as an attorney, are there situations where, like in the family law aspect of it, where you may have to tell your client, like, listen, I understand this may not be fair.
Yes.
But this is the law, and we just have to do this for now.
Yes.
Until we're able to get back where we need to be.
Absolutely. You really see that a lot in family law. When parents are going through a divorce, I often get clients where they want to keep the child from the other parent. And they don't have a leg to really stand on with that because if you can't show that the other parent is unfit, the court is not going to award you sole custody. And so I have to be able to explain that to my clients who are really angry and frustrated and they want to see things from their perspective and they want to hear what they want to hear, not what the law is. And so again, it's kind of like that fine line that you have to find the balance and kind of you got to have client control as well. But all of that, it goes to compassion and patience and also bringing back the law. This is what the law is and this is what the courts are going to do. So if you don't want to hear it, I still have to explain it to you because that's kind of my job.
People always talk about knowing the law, but I think how a judge treats people matters too. What does judicial temperament mean to you?
Judicial temperament, it means being even keeled. It means being patient. It means having integrity, not rushing to make decisions just because the courtroom is packed or because a prosecutor is being overzealous or a defense attorney is wanting you to rule right then. It means taking a step back and being able to listen to all of the evidence that's being presented, hear what is being said, but also hear what's not being said. It means having self-restraint. It means being able to have balance when you're listening, have compassion when you're ruling. It means all of those things into one. And I think that's what makes the judicial temperament of a good judge.
Describe you. I will not say his name. I won't say what parish he work in or none of that. But I like to watch him sometimes. He's funny to me. So he's sitting in court, and as court going on, he's clearly paying attention. But he'll sit back, he'll be like, he need to do his little thing, like he's just chilling, like it's all good. And by the end of the court, he finna give you. And often, I've seen him do this often. Is he displaying good temperament? Is without you don't know who I'm talking about?
I don't.
Do you think he's displaying good temperament? Is his mind already set, and he's just going through the motions, or am I just as a spectator being probably pessimistic?
I think that's a great question. And I think it's probably both. And I don't know who this person is, so I'm just going off of the story that you gave me in a short amount of time. So if this person is not paying attention to the proceedings and what's going on in their courtroom, then obviously that wouldn't be good judicial temperament. If they are paying attention, but they've already read the record and they know the case and they know how they're going to rule, then that's something differently, right? And I'm not saying that's good judicial temperament, because obviously good judicial temperament is listening to all of the evidence that's being presented, not coming into a case and having a perceived notion or having a premeditated ruling without giving the parties a chance to be heard and having their day in court. To me, that is what good judicial temperament is, and that's what it looks like in plain terms. So if this person is not doing that, again, I don't know them, then I'll
call me brother, sharing the same bread. Now they count the prize to see me dead. Every devil has a blade in a circle made. Watching all the loyalty they made start to fade. My heavy heart is turning into stone. Yes, I'm better off just standing on my own. It's political and personal, plain to see. They're trying to take the standing eyes right out of me.
I would not say that they're acting with good judicial temperament.
Is there a point where it's a bit much? A plaintiff come in and you just kind of unruly.
So are you saying a plaintiff as in an attorney?
A defendant.
Okay, a defendant. Yes. Obviously, as a judge, you can't tell a defendant what the law is and you can't advise them. So if it gets to the point where they're pro se, they're unrepresented, they don't have an attorney, then I think you would have to put the proper parameters in place saying, look, I can't advise you. I can appoint you to an attorney, a public defender. They don't cost them anything if they can't afford an attorney, and have that attorney sit down with them and potentially give them another court date, because that's what it seemed like they would need, an attorney to sit down and to kind of bring it in for them, because as a judge, you can't do everything. And you certainly can't advise a potential defendant what they should or shouldn't be doing. That's what the attorneys do.
I ain't gonna lie to you. I understand, because you made it very clear you're gonna be ethical.
Yes.
I've sat in Bossier courtrooms and I've seen Bossier judges tell defendants, and to my surprise, these defendants look just like me. Stop. Brother, stop talking. Stop. Everything you're saying is on the record. And I mean, these judges, I've seen this more than once. They went out their way to try to get the defendant to either stop trying to represent themselves or just stop saying some of the things that they were saying on the record. Is that a way to go? Can you go about it like that, or is that just too much of a fine line to try to handle that in that manner? Because I do know certain certain people, now I'm not saying for whatever reason, but certain people will get leniency that others won't.
I think that every judge kind of runs their courtroom differently. And I think some judges are more comfortable if they've been on the bench for a while protecting a defendant's rights because they don't know what those rights are. And if you get up there and you have a prosecutor that's in the courtroom, if court is going on, there's prosecutors that are in there and everything is being recorded. So some judges are comfortable saying, hey, look, stop talking. You're gonna tell the prosecutor too much information. They're in the courtroom. They're not going to say that explicitly, but them saying stop talking is trying to stop the defendant from word vomiting and giving the prosecutors ammunition to use against them. So yes, I feel like different judges run their courtrooms different and different judges are comfortable helping with defendants and their rights a little bit more than some others may be a little bit more cautious with not stepping over that line. Yeah.
Okay. There are people in Shreveport who already feel like the system is against them before they ever walk into the courtroom. How do you earn trust from people who don't trust the system? Or is it your job to earn that trust?
I think as an elected judge, it is your job to have people feel confident in the court systems that they have elected you to preside over. Yes, I do feel like that is a part of my responsibility. It's a part of all of our responsibility, right? All the people that work in that system. And one of the ways I think is just being respectful to them and operating the courtroom with professionalism and integrity. So when you have somebody that walks into the courtroom that automatically feels like the system is against them, if you treat them like a person and you see them and you show them respect, I think they're going to walk out the doors feeling a little bit different. And that's the change day by day that we want to see. That's the change.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I'm always being honest. I'm a little bit too honest. That's my flaw. People talk all they know is about Bossier. And I don't live in Bossier neither. I stay in Shreveport. But dealing with Bossier's court system, those judges that I've came in encounter with, it just seemed like they were being a little too fair. Because when I'm in Caddo, you got to shut up and they handle their business and it's on about the day. Bossier, they seem like they invested in the populace. Is that why? Is there a reason there, or is that just kind of the way things are going about in that parish?
It's funny that you say that because I practice a lot in Bossier and I began my career criminal defense in Caddo. And so I think I can speak to both. To me, it's a little bit more open to having the defendants kind of talk and just ramble, and the judges seem a little bit more comfortable with that. In Caddo, I think the judges here prefer more of a formal courtroom. So less of the defendant talking, more of the defense attorney talking and the prosecutor talking. And again, that just goes to the preference of the judge. So it seems that a lot of the judges here in Caddo would prefer the more formal kind of uptight courtroom. And it's maybe a little bit more relaxed over in Bossier. And that's what you're speaking to.
I talked to the district attorney.
Yes, sir.
And I think, see, this just put it on my mind when we talked about it. I think because he bragged about the fact that with less ADAs, they do more work than any other parish in the state. Is it that trying to streamline the process maybe be a part of it because, that extra rambling just kind of slowed things down?
I think so. And I think that Caddo, the caseload here is very different from the caseload in Bossier, right? So Caddo has huge caseloads. I worked here and they're always in trial and they work really hard. And so they have to keep the dockets moving and they have really big dockets. Not saying that Bossier don't have big dockets because they do too, but I am saying the workload is extremely different from Caddo to going into Bossier. So with that being said, I do think that the judges have to run their courtroom a little bit more tight shifted, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. What is the difference between being firm and being unfair? Because some people seem to confuse the two.
That's a good question. So to me, being firm is accountability. Accountability, what does the law say the penalty is for this particular charge? being unfair is one, illegally sentencing somebody to something that the law doesn't provide for. If the law says 6 months in jail, then obviously you can't give them a year or you can't stack charges. And then also being fair would be determining if this person does have a criminal history. Are we going to run these charges consecutive, meaning back to back, or are we going to run it concurrent? They run at the same time. So fairness is like looking at all of the evidence that's presented and then making the best choice based on under the law and also compassion.
So let's say you have a defendant and he has a extremely violent arrest record, not convictions, but an arrest record. Is it ethical to use that arrest record against him when, say, he get convicted on a way less serious charge, but it may carry a good amount of numbers? Would you take that into consideration?
I would take into consideration the arrest because I think that is a part of the evidence that's being presented. I would not necessarily jump to use it against him because those are arrests, right? They're not convictions. That's two different things. If you have a person that's been convicted of 5 domestic abuse batteries with strangulation, that's different than being arrested for domestic abuse battery 5 times. Well, I need to know, yes, these are all arrests, but I need to know more about them. Were they null pros? Were they dismissed? What happened to them? Like, where did they go? Or how did they not turn into convictions? So I need more information.
And as a judge, how do you seek out that information?
I would want the prosecutors to give me that information. The prosecutor and defense attorney come in my office. Let's have a sit down powwow and find out what happened with these other charges. Did they just go away? Were they null pros? Were they just a person randomly calling in to get this person arrested? Because that happens too. What happened with them? I need to figure it out. I would backtrack and I would need to know before I would make any decision about this new charge, if that makes sense.
Right. Okay. Have you ever had a moment in your life, in your own life or career, where you had to check yourself and grow in how you communicated with people under pressure?
That's a great question. I think when I first began my career as an attorney, I took everything personally. And so doing that, you will get burnt out really quick. And also it'll drain you from the practice of law. So I did have to have a growth sit down with myself and say, hey, look, this is a male dominated field. And if you're going to be in it and you're going to play with the big boys, then you have to have thick skin. And yes, I've had, and I still have that. I'm human. So yes, I have feelings about certain things, but I'm constantly trying to evolve and tell myself, how do you develop thicker skin? How do you not take things personally? How do you communicate more effectively? How do you tailor your communication in a way that this person is going to be able to perceive the message? How do you tailor it? Because we're communicating with multiple parties. As a defense attorney, you're communicating with the judge, you're communicating with the prosecutor, you're communicating with your client, and all of those communications have to be differently. You got to communicate with your client in plain terms that they understand. You have to communicate legalese whenever you speak with the court. So it's all about communication. I'm always perfecting my craft, if that makes sense.
Matter of fact, MJ, the man with the cowboy hat, they gonna know who I'm talking about one time, because I'm here recently, I've had a lot of strenuous situations that's kind of affected me negatively. He say, listen, man, feel your emotions.
Yes.
Don't react off of
That's it. That's that. Yes. I think that's excellent advice. Yeah.
City court handles eviction, and we know one eviction can change a whole family's life. How do you balance a landlord's rights with the fact that some tenants are one bad month away from being homeless?
That's a great question. I think that would turn on the contracts, right? Because when a landlord and a tenant enter into a contractual contract agreement, the agreement is written on the 4 corners of that paper. And so each one of them sign off on it. And if the agreement said that by the 5th of every month, you're going to pay $385 on your lease and you signed off on it, you kind of got to hold them to that. And I think that is being fair as a judge, because that's not my agreement. That's the agreement you made with this landlord, and it's brought into my courtroom as evidence. So I have to go with the four corners of the document.
So if somebody if you make a contract and they sign that contract, they're bound, basically.
In terms of the landlord and tenant agreement, I think the contract would be binding in that instance. That's what the law says. And me being an ethical judge, I would follow the law.
Makes sense. A lot of people go to city court without a lawyer. How do you make sure they understand what's going on without crossing the line of becoming their lawyer from the bench?
I think that would be explaining to them as best as I can within the law what the process is. And obviously, I can't advise them, because that would be stepping into the role of being their attorney, but being fair and impartial, and not just siding with the attorney on the other side, but actually listening to them. And if there's a way that the law is in favor of them, to rule in their favor.
Sometimes a small ticket, a missed court date, or a fine can turn into a warrant and a bigger problem. I know something about that. How do you tell the difference between somebody who is refusing responsibility and somebody who is just struggling?
Yeah. Pattern. If this person hasn't came to court the last 5 court dates, right, we're looking more at a pattern than opposed to a person that may have trouble with their vehicle, or struggling, or don't have a vehicle, or just don't have a way this time. So a one-off not coming to court definitely gives some compassion. But if you're talking about 5 or 6 or anything greater than that, I think we're heading to bench warrant territory.
Yeah, there's somebody on the run.
It's now, at this point, you're not interested in coming to court. And so there's other avenues that we can take to get you here.
I don't be interested in coming to court, but I'm going to come. I'm going to come. When it comes to low-level offenses, should the court be more about punishment, correction, restoration, public safety, or does it depend on the person and the situation?
I think the court should take all of those things into account, into consideration, but I think it's more of a case-by-case basis. Looking at the law and looking at the facts, case by case, on a case by case basis.
Is there time for that?
There's always going to be time for that. You have to make time for that. That's what a good judge would do. They make time for it.
If a young person is standing in front of you for the first time, scared and embarrassed, what would you want them to understand before they leave the courtroom?
That the judge is a human just like they are, and the judge is not some big, bad, scary wolf that's going to come down on them. That this particular judge is going to treat them with respect. This particular judge wants to hear, why are you here? What's your story? Who is this person? And have compassion for that particular person, especially if they're standing in front of you for the first time.
Makes sense. It's a judge in Caddo. When I see him on TV, extremely conservative, all that. But when I seen him operate in the courtroom, he's often very interested who the defendant is.
Yes.
Do judges sometimes have to present an image in order for them to deliver fair justice and appease those who may not understand the process and want these people locked away right now? They in jail. They went to jail. That means they did it in their mind, and they need to go swift justice.
I don't think that the judges have to put on an image. I do think that their conduct is constantly being scrutinized by all parties involved. And so I think that there's fine lines that they have to walk. But do they want to know your story, and do they want to know more information about you before they make a ruling? Absolutely. So I think it's those fine lines. I don't necessarily think that they're putting on an image, though. I think that they have to be mindful of how they come across, the things that they say, and how they conduct themselves, obviously, in their courtrooms, because they are being watched. Yeah.
Why is judgeship political in nature like it is? Because I would think in a courtroom, politics shouldn't matter. But it seems like it matters a lot.
I don't think that it's the politics that matter. And it certainly shouldn't be the politics that matter. Again, I think that judges are constantly being scrutinized. You want to present as being very impartial. You want to present as being fair. You can't be too friendly to one side and the other side. So it's imagine walking on eggshells constantly. It may look like politics to you. It's just being cautious to them.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm not even saying it's on them, because I'll give you an example. We got a district attorney here. Caddo Parish arrests and convicts more people per capita almost than anybody in the world. And they call that man soft on crime.
I'm glad you brought that up. There's a thing, it seems like, where people are constantly wanting to beat down the elected officials in Caddo Parish. And so, again, it's like walking these lines because you're on eggshells, and everything you do, you're one bad decision away from being blasted on social media. And these people, they come after you on social media. So you have to make sure that what you're doing is aligned with what you say you're going to do. And I think just what you said, that right there, they're saying that he's soft on crime. Obviously he's not, but again, it's walking within these eggshells, and it's so many, it seems hidden traps that are out there. They just want you to step in so they can, and this is what we were talking about. You get what I'm saying? It's constantly. And when you put yourself out there, even for running for office, there's a target on you. Yeah.
Because I know when I got involved in politics, I ain't running for nothing. Don't ever plan on running for nothing. They painted me in such a way that the president of my organization, he called me one time. So I think I got arrested for no deal or something. And he was like, I was like, yeah, man, I'm finna go up here to the police station and get my firearm. And he was confused. He was like, what you mean you gonna go get your firearm? I said, I'm finna go get my firearm. Man, I thought you was a convicted felon. I said, nah, I ain't no convicted felon. I said, that's what I said the whole time. But if you go on these people's page, have you believe,
yes,
like I've done all this crime.
Yes, exactly. And that's no different from like the elected officials or even somebody running for office. Everybody, it's just distortion. They take one little blips of a story and then they distort it and they put their spin on it. And now everybody is running with their story as opposed to what really happened. So yes, that happens a lot. And that's why I'm saying, as judges and as elected officials, you got to be so careful, because every little thing they're looking for a way to attack politically. Right. And in a lot of ways, it's not fair. But
yeah, it's not. It's really not. People want compassion, but they also want safety. How do you hold people accountable without throwing people away?
That's a great question. I think that comes to the patterns that you see with a particular person. Like I said, if you have in city court, it really deals with misdemeanors. So a city court judge is not going to be able to sentence somebody to 10 or 15 years, throw them away or anything like that. So that's following the law, holding them accountable. You broke the law, so there's a penalty for it. But what that penalty looks like is the compassion that you can operate from.
Sometimes, for somebody who did wrong, but jail may not be the best answer in city court, people who keep coming back for the same type of issue.
So repeat offenders, I think it's important to say here, I did get endorsed by the Shreveport Police Union. And with that endorsement, I think it goes to them knowing that I'm going to be tough on crime, but also I'm going to have compassion. But with repeat offenders, you can't have compassion with that. You have to follow the law, I think, because it's like, you've constantly done this thing over and over. And I'm sure along the way, you got compassion in terms of probation, or I'm sure you've got some type of community service. At this point, now we're going to talk about some jail time. So I think with depending how many times we're talking to repeat. Now, if you're talking about twice, then I think that's a different conversation. But if you're talking about 4, 5, 6 times, yeah, no, we're beyond probation, trying to get them to stop doing this thing. And we need a little bit harsher of a punishment.
But I think a lot of the process in court, when it comes to deterring, a lot of what you got to go through during court, that should be enough to scare you straight.
It should be. So if you have somebody that's came back 3 and 4 and 5 times, even that is not enough to scare them straight. So it's going to take something else in order to stop them, hopefully,
And a lot of them come to court with no lawyer, which means that you could probably get you a job and make more money than what you're making.
Absolutely.
Doing what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you could probably go legal and have a better life.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's why, if you want your grass cut, you can call Robert Bruchun Lawn Service. That's 318-946-5098. Again, that is 318-946-5098. Do you believe a city court judge has any role in helping reduce repeat offenses, or is the judge's job only to rule on what's in front of them?
I think the judge does have a role in helping to reduce repeat offenses. And even at times, I think telling a person, hey, look, you got a break this time. But if you come back in my courtroom again, I'm not going to be so lenient on you a second or third time. I think that that should deter or stop them from doing the same thing, knowing that you provided them leniency the first time. Will it? You don't know, but you would hope so.
Another conservative judge. These are all different conservative judges I'm talking about, I promise. I've seen this person tell people, listen, I want to help you.
Yeah.
But if you come back in my courtroom,
I saw that too.
I'm going to stick it to your ass. I'm sorry for the language. But basically, that's what they told them, because I didn't see them do it. We have this pre-notion in the Black community that the system is unfair against us. And in certain ways, that may be true. But for the most part, based on what I've seen, we be throwing ourselves away.
Exactly, because that's what I was going to say. If you coming in the courtroom 5 and 6 times committing the same crime, and then when you finally get some jail time, you holler about, oh, the system is not fair. No, it's you. You just keep coming back and you're constantly messing up. And there's a different place for this type of repeat offender. It's no longer where you're going to get probation or you're going to get a fine, because that's what people want, right? We're being honest. That would look like fair to some people. But if you're doing the same thing over and over again, that's not fair. And I would argue that would be a disservice to the public.
I got a friend that say fair is what you pay to get on the ride.
I've heard that too. I've heard that quote too.
Yeah, because what you think fair and what I
it's completely different.
Change. Fairness, so better come out your pocket with something. What is one thing you believe Shreveport City Court could do better for everyday citizens?
I think access to the courtroom could be better for everyday citizens, meaning getting people cases called up and getting their business handled more quickly and more efficiently in the courtroom. Because at the end of the day, these people are wives, they're husbands, they have kids, they got things that they need to do. Nobody has time to be sitting in the courtroom 8+ hours to have their case called up when they're trying to get a babysitter to pick their kids up from school, or they're trying to get back to a sick parent at home, or whatever the case is. So efficiency. It's all about courtroom efficiency. I don't know how many courtrooms I've been in where people just literally sit there all day long. So I'm very big on, let's move this docket. Let's be efficient. That's the same way that I operated as a prosecutor. I get my business done. We're in and out. We're not going to hold people. We're not going to keep them, because everybody have lives and they have stuff to do.
Speaking on efficiency, and I advocate for this very strongly. We live in a time where everything is changing with technology. Should the city court be doing more with text reminders, online access, virtual options, or easier ways for people to handle court business?
I would like to see that happen. And when I say, I don't necessarily mean texting people for a reminder, because that kind of gets into accountability. When you come to court, you get a court date. You get your next court date. They give that to you in the courtroom. And so that is people being accountable, being adults and handling their business, keeping track of important court dates. So I don't want to lean too far over to where we're babying people, but at the same time, making the system a little bit more smoother for them, like maybe having an online option where you can go and see when your next court date is. Yeah, but for them to go and see it, as opposed to like having somebody, hey, this is your next court date, texting. I think online options, that's something that we should work toward, yes.
Yeah, because I'm not going to lie to you, I'm involved in so much stuff. They just slipped my mind.
I got you.
And if I was able to just go here and I said, Okay, I got my court date here. Now I can put it on my calendar.
You're right. Absolutely. And to have that information available so that people can go and have a way to access it because trust, like we all are busy and we all got a lot going on. So if you lose the sheet of paper or you don't have access to it or you can't get through on the phone, having a way you can go look it up. Okay, I got this court date. I know it's coming up. I've looked it up. I have a way to look it up. And I can do that within the comforts of my own home without having to inconvenience myself. I do think that would be helpful. And I do think a lot of bench warrants would be able to be prevented.
Because that free the police up from having to go do that.
Exactly. It'll be a win for all people.
If the police, you did get endorsement from who?
From the Shreveport Police Union.
All right. If the people elect you, what would they notice first about the way your courtroom is run?
They would notice I'm really big on professionalism and like greeting people and treating them with respect. So when you walk into the doors, you would feel that respect and you would see respect. And the way that we engage and interact with you would be very respectful. And then aside from that, you would see efficiency. I don't want to be in court all day long. People don't want to be in court all day long. I want the courtroom to be efficient. So we move cases along very efficiently. It's not going to be me taking breaks or hopping off the bench or not being respective of people's time. That's not going to be a thing going forward. So I think that they would see that, they would respect that. And then also having a judge that's patient, having a judge that has the judicial temperament to deal with people, because that's a whole different skill. And then also being forward with people, telling them like, hey, this is what it is. If you come back in here again, you're not going to get the same leniency. Having that compassion for people, because that's really important to me.
Makes sense. And my last question, at the end of your term, what would you have to be true for you to honestly say, I served Shreveport the right way?
I think that would be stability. I'd bring stability to the bench. I'd bring balance, being on both sides. That's a unique perspective that only a few people can say that they have. And efficiency, moving the courtroom, allowing it to go more quicker, getting people business in and out. I would try to incorporate where we have that online portal where you can go and check and see your next court dates to make it more of a streamlined process where we're not getting so many bench warrants and people are not going to jail that shouldn't be there just because they didn't know when their next court date was. I would be compassionate with those people that were just having struggles in life and wasn't able to get to court. They don't deserve a bench warrant. They deserve another court date. So I would do all of those things if I was elected as Shreveport next City Court Judge for Division D.
They called me brother, sharing the same bread. Now they count the price to see me dead. Called me brother, sharing the same bread. Now they count the price to see me dead. Every devil has a blade in a circle made. Watching all the loyalty they made start to fade. My heavy heart is turning into stone. Yes, I'm better off just standing on my own. It's political and personal, plain to see. They're trying to take the stinning eyes right out of me. Like Pac Man.